we're going to do is look at this preliminary plumbing plan and just do some quick layout for it. And what I have real quickly, not too concerned with most of the rooms, but this room right here is going to be our mechanical room. Looks like this is a water heater. And we have a shower room. And we have some toilet rooms. It's like men's and women's toilet rooms here. And then a mop sink in a janitor's closet on the end. So the first thing that I have to pay attention to is where the water is going to come into the building. So whenever I'm drawing a cold water line, it's going to be represented as a center line. And whenever I actually come into the mechanical room, there's going to be a separate drawing that's going to explain exactly what's going on in that mechanical room. I'm going to show the water meter, and it's often called a service entrance detail or service entrance schematic that basically just shows where the water comes in and what it does after it comes in. So I'm going to have a meter here, so I'm just going to draw a circle as a meter, and then I'm going to have it come over to this direction, and at this point I'm going to go out into the corridor. Whenever I'm doing commercial buildings, I like to have the plumbing lines in the corridor if possible. One of the reasons for that is if there would ever be a leak, then it's isolated to the corridor instead of being within the rooms for the main plumbing lines. And the other thing is easy access for risers if you're going to have multiple stories, or if you want to have shut-offs. You can shut off a classroom or a locker room or a office or a patient room, whatever building you're designing. You can shut off an individual room without limiting the entire building. So my cold water line is basically going to start there, and I'm just going to run it down through the corridor. Kind of like that, and I'm going to take it right to my mop sink. Whenever I do that, I'm going to show a valve. I'm just going to show my valve like that, and just to enlarge that so you can see exactly what it's going to look like. A lot of people will show a valve like that in schematic or plan view. You can also add this top part. You can also do a ball valve that's similar to that. Whenever I see this one on the left, it's typically just a generic symbol for a valve. It could be a lot of different types of valves. This is going to be a ball valve. So I'm going to put a valve there at the end of my line. I'm also going to draw lines that come in to each one of these group of fixtures. So I have 3 lavs here. I'm going to tee off and bring those down there, and right here out in the hallway I'm going to put that isolation valve. So again, if I had a problem with one of these lavs or the line going to one of these lavs, I could simply go out in the hallway, I could pop a ceiling tile, reach up in the ceiling, find that valve, turn it off, and then I don't even have to disturb this room if it's occupied. I'm going to do another one right here. And again, my plumbing lines are typically going to be up in the ceiling, and then I'm going to drop them down to the fixtures whenever I'm doing a commercial plumbing plan. It's not always the case, but more often than not. And this one, instead of running through an exterior wall, I might have it come in here, drop down in one location, and then spread out to each individual shower head like that. So that's just a real quick, simple drawing that shows how the cold water is going to work. The next one that I'm going to do is going to be a hot water return line. So to represent that, I'm going to come off of the water heater, and I'm going to incorporate the hot water and hot water return into one line type. I'm going to use the phantom line type, which is shown here with the 2 dashes. I'm going to show a pump here for a circulating pump, so I can have a hot water return loop. And basically, I'm just going to come out here in the corridor, and I'm going to run my main line the whole way through, and I'm going to do a loop. And I'm going to bring that loop back to the water heater. There's a couple different ways that I could do it there, but I can show a detail or a schematic showing exactly how that's going to work out in the mechanical room. I'm also going to add this line, the cold water line that feeds the water heater. And I'm going to pick up this sink with the cold water. I'm going to do the same with the hot water line. I'm just going to pull out of that loop, come over, drop down in the wall. I'll do the same thing here. Again, I'm going to put a valve on there in the corridor so I can isolate that. And I would have a hot water line going to each one of those lavs. Obviously I don't need hot water for the toilets. And here I would just have one single line that's going to supply hot water to both the lavs and the showers. And then here I'd have one that would come down to the showers and then spread out to each individual shower mixing valve. And that's a real quick, basic, preliminary plan to try to work out the details of how I'm going to run the plumbing within this space. One of the key things that I wanted to remember to point out was I kept as many of the main plumbing lines in the corridor as possible. I put shut-off valves or isolation valves out in the corridor so you could isolate individual rooms if possible. I kept all the mechanical equipment like the meter, the water heater, and the pump in the mechanical room. And then I ran individual lines where needed.